might match any offer or exceed it?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to exceed a head coaching offer, how much money he'll make. But, yeah, I mean, everybody wants Ben Johnson.
It's a possibility, and the likelihood may be in the 90-something% range, but it's still not 100.
How are you doing it? Are you guys going to be on separate?
We're just we have to share one computer.
All right. Well, I can hardly see both of your faces.
Well,
I don't know if you're going to be able to see both of us. Oh, there we go. Sort of.
You got us.
Can you hold hands?
This is as good as it's going to get, because I can't get in the restaurant.
Right.
Okay.
And if we were any closer, we'd have to go to the.
I actually set it up. I actually set it up to get in the restaurant, but I think they forgot
about
to let me in.
Oh, they're closed
till 11:30. Yeah, but I had them open at 10, and they said okay, but they're not there.
Aren't you running the show?
I don't own the restaurant.
I know, but still, you're running the show.
I'm going to try calling them again. Maybe somebody just came in.
All right. Well, we can do this on the run. So that's the cool thing about technology today, is if you have to, if you do make it inside, you could walk and talk at the same time.
Correct.
All right. So Tony's going to join us in just a little bit, and we are going to start off first of all with. Now we're going to go into this. I got a couple of questions I wanted to throw out there, because by the time we talk again next week, and I think we're back to Wednesdays next week. So, as a matter of fact, Mark should be back with us next week. So can you put the camera down a little bit? I'm only getting your eyes. There you go. So it looks like we're going to have Mark back and Victor back and everybody back next Wednesday. So just keep in mind, everybody out there that's watching, and don't forget, you're watching this on Proline TV. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. It's the quickest and easiest way to know whenever a show is available. But once we get back to Wednesdays, then it'll be something that you'll be able to see every Wednesday in your YouTube library of shows. And also want to remind everybody too, that, as I said, Mark will be back, and everybody, Tony will actually be joining us in just a few minutes. So we're going to link him in here as well. But what I wanted to talk about to kind of get started, because Black Monday is going to be pretty big. There's going to be a lot of head coaches that are going to get the axe. Some general managers are going to get the axe. And so I wanted you guys to go over, I got a list of names of the head coaches that are the most vulnerable. I wanted to see what you guys thought. And it's interesting. I was taking a look at the Playbook Coffee Club email today, which, by the way, you can get in your own email. I think it's usually available 6 o'clock in the morning every morning, and all you have to do is subscribe over on Playbook, and we'll have a link in the description for that. Manny from the Magic City wants to know, if the Dolphins don't make the playoffs, is head coach Mike McDaniel's job on the line? And I did not have Mike McDaniel on my list. Mark says it's been a frustrating 3 seasons for the Dolphins behind McDaniel, who was hired as an offensive genius. Ironically, the only thing that has been offensive about the Dolphins over the past 3 years has been their offense. It has underperformed, especially in games against teams with a winning record, going a ludicrous 3-15 straight up, 6-12 against the spread, as opposed to owning a 20-6 straight up, 17-8-1 ATS against losing foes. And therein lies McDaniel's woes. So I had a number on my list, let's see, of, I believe, 10 coaches. Do I need to put McDaniel to make it 11, gentlemen?
I would think, well, I guess you could sort of say the 4 games they missed with Tua mattered significantly, because they scored about, I think there was 10 points per game in the 4 full games that he missed. And I didn't update it since, about 24 points per game at least in the 8 games that he had started and played through, I guess it was through game 12. I didn't update it since then, but I can't imagine that is much lower than 24. It may even be higher. So there's a reason to believe that not all of the lack of success this year, because they were a playoff team last year when everybody was pretty much healthy. So
Mark was giving you his career record, so you got to take his entire coaching career, not just this year.
That's true, but he he may get one more year, just like Brian Dable may get one more year with the Giants.
I can see that. I agree.
Quarterback situation.
I agree. Jim?
Well, it's hard to find quality people, head coaches, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. And like we're seeing with quarterbacks like Darnold and guys that are developing after a period of time, we're cutting their opportunity to grow short. We're saying, okay, we're bringing you in, you got a year. And the quarterback, sometimes you give him 1 year, 6 months, like Zach Wilson. If the kid had better coaching, maybe he's a starter in the league.
Yep.
The problem goes back to the union and the contract with the union and all the garbage that they put in there. It's handcuffing the teams from developing players that should be getting better coaching and better development. So it all comes down to the union. Unions are good, but unions should not run your business. And that's what's happening. And that's why some of these people are falling off. Darnold might be bagging groceries somewhere, but he obviously can play. Look at Baker Mayfield. Mm-hmm. They cut him short in Cleveland, and this guy is like a superstar right now. He actually might win a couple games in the playoffs.
So then what do you think then? What you're saying is this coaching as well. You believe McDaniels deserves more time.
One more year.
Yeah, I agree with Andy.
Okay. All right. So out of the list, I had 10 coaches.
Although I will say, Greg, there has been a lot of criticism about his in-game coaching decisions. And that could factor into it as far as being able to, not quite as bad as Eberflus, but I don't know anybody who is. But, Charger coach.
Well, I tell you what, that Atlanta coach on the sidelines the other night with those, he looked like Eberflus. Yeah. He looked like a deer in headlights. He was frozen. And not using those timeouts, Atlanta should have won that game. Yeah. They easily should have won that game. With a better coach, they'd have won that game.
All right. So I'm going to go over the list of players, and you guys just give me a yay or a nay regarding whether or not you believe that, first of all, whether you believe they'll be fired and whether or not you would fire them. Okay. So you got 2 answers for each coach, starting with Brian Daboll. Andy?
I don't think he'll be fired, and I don't think he should be fired. I think it's the general manager should go. And in other words, if Daboll goes, the general manager has to go. If one of them has to go, it should be the general manager who didn't provide him with the players and the backup talent, the quarterback and everything. Now, you could argue that Daniel Jones may not have gotten good coaching, and Daboll was known for his offensive ingenuity up in Buffalo.
Yep.
But then again, maybe he's just not as talented as everybody thought. He went to Duke. He got great training under the head coach there who was working with quarterbacks, but maybe he had reached his level in college.
Or maybe he just needs more time.
I agree 100% with Andy. He's 100% right.
He's in the right place, that's for sure. All right. So, Van Daboll, you agree then, Jim?
100% with what Andy just said. I agree.
Okay. Jonathan Gannon. Andy?
This is a team that has a chance. What are they now? Are they 8-8 now, I think?
Yeah, they've been a 500 team this year.
So
they had some good wins. This is definitely a better year for them. Yeah,
they were 9-8 last year, and everybody forgets it because they were never really in contention. And
yeah, they didn't win the quality of games they won this year.
Right, exactly. I say he stays. I mean, you still have a second-year quarterback who needs some maturity. There wasn't a lot around him. The defense had its moments, but also had its moments. I think he stays. I think he should stay. Again, one more year.
Okay.
I think they have an issue with quarterback. I don't believe Murray is a championship quarterback at this level.
We're talking Gannon, right?
We're talking Arizona?
Coaches, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the problem he has is he is a quarterback that needs a lot of
but he likes him. He likes him, though.
Yeah, but the guy's small.
I'm just telling you what he likes him. No matter what we say.
He likes him because he wants to keep his job. Okay, so the bottom line is
a lot of people thought Kyler Murray was going to get traded.
If Murray doesn't have the support around him, which is Connor and Benson and an offensive line, and this guy has got deficiencies. And when you have these guys that can't see over the linemen, they need a lot of help because they got to move around to find the lanes to throw. There's a lot of deficiencies with somebody that size.
By the way, I was confusing him with the Colts coach Steichen.
Oh, Steichen.
Gannon is the Arizona coach. Arizona with a win this week, okay, ends up 8-9. They were 4-13 each of the last 2 years. Clearly, progress has been made. In fact, I liked Arizona a lot. Excuse me, I liked the Rams last week against Arizona. They didn't cover because Arizona played such really good defense, and the Rams just couldn't quite get things going. But also remember, earlier this year, they beat the Rams 41-10. I think they also lost big time to Washington, which was another much improved team. They also beat San Francisco earlier this year. So yeah, they had the 2 losses to Seattle, and of course,
So he deserves another year.
Absolutely.
Okay. Gerard Mayo, Patriots.
How do you get rid of a guy who had no talent to coach with 1 year, and then he finally made a decision to put in the rookie quarterback Drake May, and he's shown sign of being a
I don't know. To some reason, there are a lot of people in New England that think that.
Yeah, because he's not Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised when I heard it myself.
They got spoiled with all those Super Bowls. They're not going to find that coach right away. The
only thing that we can think of is that we don't watch all of their games, and maybe he's done a lot of questionable things, just things that he shouldn't be doing. So
don't know.
Mike McCarthy.
The way they're playing the last 6 games, I think you got to keep them.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, look, you lost your. Would you consider Prescott a top 10 quarterback in the league? Maybe right around that.
Top 15.
About 15, about middle of the road.
They lost him in the middle of the season. They never really addressed the running game in the offseason, which was a mistake, and we knew that going in. The defense struggled early, then it came together.
Injuries. Lots of injuries.
With Michael Parsons coming back. The question is, Jerry Jones, what will he decide? I mean, he generally is, at least at this time of his ownership, a loyal guy.
I think
he may end up staying.
Yeah,
but he may also get the edict that you got to not just make the playoffs next year, but you got to at least win a game. But of course, injuries still could be an issue.
The biggest problem they have is they've overpaid Dak so much, they don't have anything to pay other people to support them. They need a running game. They need help in the offensive line. They need more defenders. They need somebody to support CD Lamb. They have a lot of holes to fill, and they're paying the guy they're paying him Patrick Mahomes money, and he's not him.
Let's see. Raheem Morris.
Out.
I know Jim's feeling. What do you think? It's only been 1 year. What do you think, Andy?
Well, the thought is, you mentioned it's just 1 year. He had to go with Kirk Cousins, who was not 100% most of the year. He ultimately made the decision, or the decision was made for him by the owner, to put Penix in there. And he performed decently in his 2 games in pressure situations because they need to win these games they did need to win last week that they could have won. Jim talked about why perhaps they didn't win. He's been a solid defensive coach, Morris. When I look at what he inherits there, of all the 32 teams this year, and you take a look at their preseason win projections, I thought Atlanta was the most overrated. I think their win total was 9 or 9.5, and I could see no reason. Yeah, I could see no reason for that optimism.
It was the division.
What's that?
It was the division.
Yeah, but even so,
a lot of people didn't even think Tampa Bay would respond this year.
Well, actually, I thought the Jets were more overrated.
I thought they were overrated, but I just think the number for Atlanta was the Jets were overrated because they were overhyped. I think
so. You would keep Morris then?
I guess you have to give him another year. Yeah.
Doug Peterson
gone,
and deservedly so.
Antonio Pierce.
I'd give him. He had no quarterback to work with.
Wow, really? You'd give him another year? Okay.
Yeah, I guess we are.
Well, you're in Vegas. What are they saying about him?
The players like him.
Yeah, they do.
They play hard for him. In fact, you look at the games they've lost this year when they've been behind. This team has not quit. That's Antonio Pierce's personality.
They might win this week.
Yeah,
they're not. It's not a shoe-in the Chargers are going to beat them.
Yeah. Well, the important thing in that game, of course, is Pittsburgh. And if Pittsburgh wins their game, then Chargers are basically playing for very little. If the Steelers lose, a win by the Chargers means they're going to Houston instead of having to go play the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, right? So, yeah, that is a big difference. Okay.
Yeah, so we can't really say what to do on that game all that much. I'll probably end up on the Raiders as an underdog anyway, because I think the Chargers, even if they in a position where they need to win to avoid Baltimore, would again just do enough to win without necessarily as soon as you get an 8-point lead, you pull your starters.
By the way, Greg, we don't always do these podcasts from our car, but we're homeless now.
Who did you lose on? Who did you put all your money on, guys?
We got locked out of the location where we were going to do the podcast. They forgot to let
They turned the lights out on you. Yeah, and I closed the door.
Yeah,
Do you think Antonio Pierce is going to get fired?
Yes, I actually do. I think there's a lot of pressure on the owner to get rid of him. Yeah, I think they I don't think it may not be the right thing to do, but I think they will get rid of him.
And again, I'll point to the general manager making the decision. Gardner Minshew as a backup. O'Connell never really, he never really seemed to be a franchise quarterback. He's more like one of those backups who give you 2-3 good games.
You're right.
If the general manager, you can only coach and succeed with the players you have. I mean, and then again, if you're the head coach, how much of the X's and O's do you do as opposed to what the coordinators do?
The biggest problem is there's no what quarterbacks are you going to find? They're just, there's not much in the draft.
Well, they really like Sanders. There's the ties with Davis, Mark Davis. Mark Davis really, really likes Sanders. And he's only going to be a few spots away from picking him no matter where he is. So that means he's going to be able to make him where he could give up next year's first-round pick if he loves him as much as
where are they
he
right
does.
now? I know they're not in the top 5 as far as draft choices because I don't know.
Well, they're pretty close enough. So
why
they're
don't you go after McCarthy from Minnesota? Because
they can do that.
You got to be crazy to get rid of Darnold the way he's playing.
No, that's not going to happen. Okay, Steichen.
Well, those are my thoughts on the Colts. They had to deal with some injuries, and in fact, I didn't realize until Jim started talking.
Who's the GM there?
Ballard.
That's the guy that's got to go.
I think he's been there.
He's been there 100 years. He hasn't done a damn thing. I don't know if Steichen's good or not, but Steichen came out in the beginning of the year. He said he's going to run the ball. They have a great run, and then he comes out starting pass. And Richardson is just not developed enough with enough experience, even in college. And he's not talented enough at the short passing game. And then he tries to run and he gets hurt. He's always hurt. And I mean, obviously Flacco had the miracle in Cleveland the year before, but not this year. It didn't work out as well. I don't know. It might be the general manager just not providing the right players.
Kent Sterling, who I will be interviewing in the next week or two, who is our top Colts insider, said that Ballard is likely gone. He's actually not sure about Steichen. And he says definitely Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator, is gone.
Yeah.
So anyway, but
does he think the Colts should keep Steichen? You said he wasn't sure.
I don't have details, but I'll be talking to him again. You can check out his website.
Give up 45 to the Giants when they're averaging 14 a game. Yeah. How the hell can they do that?
Yeah, Gus Bradley he hasn't done his job. Kevin Stefanski.
I think he has to stay.
I think he's a good coach with an owner that obviously you got to take your hat off to these people that make all the money, but the stuff that he's done with these contracts, I know the players there are not happy. And if they're gonna bring Deshaun Watson back, are they bringing him back? I mean, God.
They're bringing him back contractually, but my insider Fred Greetham said that he already talked about this when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and we actually have some of the interview is available here on Proline TV. The full length is on our lads, but you can check it out. And I talked to him all about these questions with Deshaun Watson, and he said that they're going to restructure his contract, but he's basically going to be sitting on the sidelines with sometimes and without a uniform, and they're just not going to play him. They're just going to restructure his contract, but they're never going to play him, he believes. They're just not going to do it. They just can't, he says. So it's just one of those things. You're just going to have him on the team. And then maybe by restructuring his contract, it'll be a lot easier to trade him. But I'm not sure who would trade for him.
Hey, Andy or I, we'll just sit on the sidelines. We'll be happy to do it.
I can hold a clipboard.
Zach Taylor.
Oh, boy.
Well, 2 straight years of missing the playoffs. I have to think the defensive coordinator is gone. But there, there's also some ammunition for getting rid of Zach Taylor because of the Cincinnati Bengals over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Horrible starts to the season. 0-2, 1-3, whatever it is. That's on the coach. That's on preparation for starting the season. Something along those lines. That because we see as the season progresses, certainly on offense, the talent shows up. Now they did have the injuries early with the 2 receivers, Higgins and and Chase. But it's been a pattern even when they were healthy at the start of the last few seasons, although I think Burrow was banged up at the start of the 24 season. But
what if they make the playoffs?
I know that Burrow has mentioned recently that he's very unhappy that the organization has not sat down, signed Higgins, signed Chase, kept Nixon, and he's very unhappy that they developed this and the ownership is not doing the job to keep this together and improving the defense. So there's a lot of unhappiness there, which brings up the question of them being favored at Pittsburgh this week, which we should get into talking about.
Okay, well, what are they, still a 1-point favorite?
I saw 1.5.
Yeah, but the thing is, Pittsburgh has something to play for, and people aren't talking enough about that. If Pittsburgh wins, they're going to go to Houston, and Houston has not been playing well. And that is a team that Pittsburgh could easily beat. Now, if they lose the game, they're going to Baltimore. And God damn it, I don't want to go to Baltimore if I'm Pittsburgh. So I think, and also, Tomlin is mad, very upset with the way they've been playing recently. They've lost 3 in a row. And a lot of the players have gathered behind Tomlin and say, we're coming out, we're going to play like we can play football. Pittsburgh is a better team than Cincinnati, but they're not a better offense than Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And for them to not be favored at home in a situation where they're as motivated, because you got to remember, Pittsburgh doesn't need any help. They win, they go to Houston. Yeah. Cincinnati needs help from a couple other teams, including a team that's an 11-point dog. So,
well, look,
I got a question.
There's no doubt Cincinnati needs it more. But like you said, it's not like they're playing the role of the Chiefs where all their backups are in and they don't care about the game. All their starters are in. So that should be an indication that it matters to them. They want to win the game.
This explains the difference between must win and must win. Must win for Cincinnati means they must win or their season is over. Must win for Pittsburgh is not as severe a must win because they're already in the playoffs. Even if, depending upon where they have to go, they still have a chance to win the Super Bowl because they know they're already in the playoffs. But to Jim's point, if I have an opportunity to control, do I want to play the Baltimore Ravens or do I want to play the Houston Texans? Even if the Houston Texans are on the road, yes, I'd rather play Houston. Houston is a very vulnerable team right now on both sides of the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And Baltimore is showing they're playing right now the way Super Bowl champions play for the last 3-4 games of the season.
Well, you're either going to be a road favorite, or you're going to be almost a touchdown underdog. That right there shows you the difference between playing in Baltimore and Houston in the first round.
I'd probably
still more than a touchdown.
Yeah, I'd probably, on the one hand, yeah, I wouldn't mind being, if I'm Pittsburgh, a favorite on the road at Houston. At the same time, I know Baltimore so well, and the games are so close. Yeah, they won the big one last time because Pickens was out, the wide receiver. He'll be healthy now. I wouldn't mind taking 7 points with Pittsburgh in Baltimore, and we know Lamar Jackson's playoff issues.
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
Was the one game that they won a few weeks ago against the Steelers, was that the outlier for Lamar Jackson? Or is the start of, hey, maybe we can get on a little roll and get back some of those losses we've had over the years? We won't know until or unless they meet in the playoffs. But I can certainly see, when they played a few weeks ago, Cincinnati would score, Pittsburgh would match. Cincinnati would score, Pittsburgh would match. Ultimately, Cincinnati scored and Pittsburgh couldn't match. I'm sorry,
Pittsburgh Cincinnati couldn't stop anybody.
And Pittsburgh ended up winning like 44-38 or something in that game. And that was on the road. That was the game that I said was Cincinnati's season.
And I remember talking about this with you, Jim, when we were doing our Monday show, and we were going over the lines. And I guessed, I thought the Steelers were going to be a 3-point favorite or a 2.5-point favorite, and you told me like almost the exact opposite, that the Bengals were the favorite. And this is the same thing. I don't understand why and now again, the only other thing that I think is important to note, and we talked about this, you and I, a few days ago, is that NFL players, not the coaches, not the front office, but the players themselves generally don't care. They don't look at it like me and you are, like the front offices, and like, everybody's strategizing, how do we get to the Super Bowl? Players know they're in the playoffs. They're not going, oh, I don't want to go to Baltimore. That's not where I want to go. I'd rather go play Houston. They just don't
But
act
by
like
the way,
that.
excuse me, Greg, I'm not even sure that the front office care. I think the ones who really care or make a big deal of it are the fans and the media.
No, well, I mean, the front office, I mean, because they're a little bit smarter. I mean, the coaches, they know how important it is.
Well, I guess all they care about is if we get one more playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. They know that.
I'm going to go back to this. Not all these players are long-term contracts with big money. Some of these guys are playing for minimum money or marginal money compared, and they could easily be out of their jobs next year. All these guys are going to go on the field and play hard so they have a chance at having their job next year. Not everybody is a Patrick Mahomes with a guaranteed 5 or 6 year contract. It's not like that. There's 50 some guys on the team. They don't all have long-term deals.
And that's what we're going to see in the Kansas City game, because again, I think it's kind of hilarious that the line can be that big, considering it's like you're saying, Jim, Carson Wentz is coming into this game. He is auditioning for a paycheck next year to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. You can't rest everybody. There are going to be several starters out there for the Chiefs. There are going to be some guys that are going to be good enough. And on the opposing side, you got a team with a rookie quarterback. They've lost a couple of games. There's pressure on them. I don't care. They're at home. Sometimes there's even more pressure. So that's a situation right there where that line, I believe, is worth going with. I think it's not like I'm going to sit here and go,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, love Chiefs. But I think it's worth it.
You didn't mention the one thing I was waiting for you to say. Kansas City plays defense.
Yeah, well,
they don't need to score points, and they haven't scored points. And when you're a star, if you're going to rest players, I think it's a lot easier. Well, there's less risk of an injury generally for your skilled players on offense. On defense, I think you're just going out there to hit hard all the time. And Kansas City is one of the top defenses in the league. And at the same time, as we started to see in the game against Cleveland, the Denver defense is not the same Denver defense that we saw for the first 8 weeks of the season. So, this is a huge number. And also, if I'm Denver and I get out to, let's say, a 13, 14-point lead, I want to put my starters. We got to play next week. And all we have to do is win the game, and we're in.
Yeah, we haven't even heard yet from Andy Reid regarding who's playing and who's not. So I guess we'll have to wait for that.
They are sitting some linemen. They're definitely Pacheco's not going to play.
And I would guess Chris Jones isn't playing either.
But they're all, everybody on the league team is a professional football player.
Absolutely.
They're not dogs. I mean, these aren't high school kids.
And those are the guys that are the backups that want to impress. They're the ones that are going to go out there, not just Wentz, but almost everybody that's out there is looking for a starting job that's coming off the bench. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be as easy as the line indicates. All right. So,
also this, and I sort of alluded to it. Give me 10.5 points with a team that can play defense against any. You give me 10.5 points.
How about this?
Against a team that is already in the playoffs. It tells you they've got a very talented roster. And what have they lost? One game?
How about this? Look at the total in this game. 39.
Yeah.
Now, you got an 11-point favorite with a 39-point total. When did you ever see something like that?
That's a 25-14.
I mean, my God.
Yeah. That's a 25-14 final, basically, 11 and 39. But the 25 is for the Denver team. The 14, I can understand Kansas City scoring 14 in the game. I'm not sure I can understand Kansas City giving up 25 in this game.
That's a good point.
Yeah, especially the way, again, you're a rookie quarterback. You got a lot of pressure on you. And we even saw that against Cincinnati. It wasn't like Denver. Let's not forget that score in the second half. What was it, like 10-3 starting the second half?
Let's also remember Denver lost on a blocked field goal.
Sure.
It was 7. What was it? 17.
True.
Something like that. 17-13 or 17-16. I think they lost.
Let's see.
I think Denver is going to win the game.
Yes.
I don't know about covering the spread. Denver will win. I don't believe they'll cover that spread.
That's exactly what I thought.
All right. So, which head coaches that are out there that the name, some of them are the biggest names, and I think pretty much everyone on the list everyone on the list here has been a former head coach that could get a job. And we've already heard their names bandied about. So I'm going to run through this list, and you guys tell me whether or not you think that you would hire or whether or not you think these guys deserve to be hired. Pete Carroll.
I'd hire him.
Yes.
John Gruden.
He's a very young 72.
Oh, he's amazingly energy-wise. I don't know what drink he drinks, but I want some. He's amazing energy.
John Gruden.
I would hire him.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to be hired.
I would like to hire him, but I don't know. I don't know where he'd get a job, but he could be.
Cliff Kingsbury.
He's failed at that. I think he's really good at an offensive coordinator. I don't know that he's good at the next level.
It's hard to say because there's a number of coaches who do not do well in their first head coaching job, but they've learned, they matured, and then they succeed. For example, Pete Carroll, coach with New England, coach with the Cleveland, rather. No, I'm sorry, Belichick, coach with Cleveland. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Belichick. Yeah.
Right, and then Pete Carroll had his tenure, and then he became a real good head coach. We don't know yet about Dan Quinn in Washington. But
the only thing with Kingsbury is he never really had a successful head coaching career in college either. And that's why a lot of people were surprised when he got the Arizona gig. So yeah, it's but today's day and age, everybody's looking for that quarterback whisperer.
I would think Kingsbury might be last or second to last on this list of guys who would get hired.
Ron Rivera.
Maybe third to last, because I got Gruden down at the end, even though I got him probably close to the top as should be.
Ron Rivera.
No.
Rex Ryan.
No, one reason about Ron Rivera, Greg, and you'll appreciate this, the Jets are looking at him.
Yeah, that is. If that happens, I'll be the first to ditch off and find another team. Rex Ryan.
Yes, but it won't be with the Jets because he wants the job, and I don't want him to get it.
Yeah, that's not going to
happen. With the miserable franchise. But no,
Mike.
No, I think Rex Ryan should be hired. But I think it would take a really good offer because I think he's really comfortable doing his ESPN thing.
Mike Vrabel.
Well, he's a solid guy, and I don't know what his ceiling is as a head coach, but he's always been a solid coach, and he works hard. I'd probably give him a shot. I mean, he definitely would be an improvement over some of the coaches that are.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The only thing about Vrabel is the failures he's had. I think his last 2 years down late in the season, but I don't know how much you can really blame it on him.
He didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah, remember, things were going pretty good until they decided to let A.J. Brown go.
Yep.
And it's
trade that never made sense.
Yeah, who made that decision?
Yeah, he's not there anymore. That general manager's just in some front office doing something. Maybe he's pushing pencils. Mike Zimmer.
He's with Dallas now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, defensive back.
And we've seen the Dallas defense show improvement over the latter part of the season after they had a lot of injuries early. He knows his stuff.
But as a head coach.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a pretty successful run in Minnesota, but it wasn't like not a lot of playoff success. Okay.
Yeah,
and then,
a lot of it has to do with how many jobs there will be open. I don't think.
And I hate to bring this up, but we have to start looking at some of the ages. How old is he?
He's 68.
Well, if he's the same age, he's a different kind of a Pete Carroll is 72 going on 20.
Yeah.
It's a difference.
I think Rex Ryan is in his early 60s, maybe. Gruden's probably right around that age, and I think everybody else is younger. Especially, Rivera may be up there as well, too, because he was playing on the 85 Bears.
All right, what do you guys think about the Minnesota-Detroit matchup? Detroit is, what are they right now, a 3-point favorite? Around there. And
there's only one play I make in that game for sure, that's the over.
That's 56. That's a big number.
Yeah.
But the way these defenses are, the way Detroit's defense is, I was going to mention that, the way that Detroit's defense has been playing lately, I hope the Bengals make the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl because that could be the first time we see a team score 60.
What do you think about?
Both defenses have the ability, although Detroit may be a little helpful.
I think until somebody can beat Detroit in Detroit, I think you just have to go with them, but I'm not going to lay 3 with them, and that's the number.
Well, I mean, Buffalo beat them, Tampa Bay beat them. So the thing is their defense is getting
what's his name, the defender back?
Hutchinson.
Angeloni.
Oh yeah,
he's coming back. That's a big addition. I'm sorry, I can't minimize the fact that they win at home and they're so tough and they got a super aggressive they're going to be motivated. It's not like this isn't like a coach that doesn't motivate. He really knows how to
Well,
motivate.
I mean, the game, you win the number one seed. I mean, everybody's going to be motivated in the game. Whoever wins gets home field advantage. It gets a week off. So
Since the
this
middle
is a
of the
huge game.
Since the middle of the 22 season, the Detroit Lions, including this year, 36-10 straight up. That's pretty solid, isn't it?
I bet against them. I don't remember the last time I bet against them.
Where do you hear their point spread record?
Yeah.
You would think a team that's 36-10 might be around 500 or so. Not so. 34-11-1.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not.
phenomenal.
I'm not going to bet
the
against.
trends are incredible. Even and against winning teams, Dan Campbell's amazing.
The thing is that some players will say, "Oh, we got a short week. We had the rough game on Monday night. Now we're going to go back and play Minnesota. Poor me, poor me. The poor me. Not this team. No way. These guys are tough.
They reflect their coach.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
The
Well,
coach
anyway,
makes some very out of the ordinary decisions.
Yeah.
He doesn't win them all, but he wins enough of them.
And the players love him.
Yes.
I'm looking at this, and I think
but believe me, I like the Minnesota team,
Yeah.
and I like their coach, and they're super talented. It's going to be a hell of a game, but I like a lot of points. That's what I like in the game.
Yeah, I look, Detroit beat Minnesota. It's very hard. Two good teams going up against each other for you to sweep them. I just think Detroit's defense, we saw it again on Monday against San Francisco. They can't even stop San Francisco's offense. So I just think that, I bet enough against Minnesota this year too. They have just defied everything. They've been playing so awesome. So I'm actually taking Minnesota in the game.
The one thing about the Lions defense, and they've had 4 games, unlike Cincinnati's defense, when a defensive play has to be made, the Lions have made it. That's why they've only lost twice.
What about Brian Flores, by the way? Now, he comes with a lot of baggage. And if he didn't come with baggage, he'd be an instant
Tony,
head coaching candidate. So what do you think?
I think he'll get interviews.
I think he's a defensive coordinator, and I think that's where he should stay.
Yeah.
Would you hire Flores, Tony?
By the way, before I start, Tony, he got. I think he was treated poorly. He got the Miami Dolphins after that horrible start to play.
He got treated poorly?
Yeah.
From what respect?
For being fired.
For being fired.
Yes.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
He's a head coach.
I'm all right with that. Then again, I mean, we've seen a lot of head coaches that have gotten a shaft pretty early in their careers. So I'm okay with that.
I think,
but unfortunately, what he did after that,
he did himself no favors with his approach.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Really
right.
bad.
But again, is he a head coach in this league based on what we've seen with Zach Taylor and Raheem Morris over the last couple of days? Yes. Like, I don't think he would make those ridiculous errors. And his track record kind of speaks to that.
You're right.
He's a hell of a defensive mind.
He's an improvement over what you just mentioned. Yes.
Well, again, I know there might be, who knows, 8 or 9 jobs open. It's possible, but whoever decides to think about hiring him is definitely going to have to get the sense of the media into the city. And this is when you have to listen to the talk shows. You've got to listen to your fans. You've got to listen to the community.
All right, Greg, but he's coached in New York and he's coached in Miami.
No, but he hasn't done this he hasn't gotten a head coaching job since he opened his mouth. That's my point.
Yeah, but
You're basically telling the entire league they're racist. All right, and you say stuff like that.
Yes, he said. Well, no, he said it to who was it that didn't hire him? I forget who it was.
Oh, all I know.
The Jets? No.
The funny
he felt that he didn't get a fair shake. I don't think that was the entire league. I think that was his take on. I can't even remember who it was.
Out of the sun.
See, I'm not getting bothered by the sun at all.
Okay.
And keep in mind too that this is the funny thing is to keep in mind that the general manager for the Miami Dolphins is black.
Yeah, Chris Greer.
Okay. Yes.
Good question.
So it's just, what are you doing opening your mouth about this stuff? It's just now look, Do I think in time? I just think it's too soon, in my opinion. I think it's too soon. I think he will get another chance, but I honestly think it's too soon. Or look, it might just be the perfect location. Like I said, I was saying, there might be a spot. Give me a spot that you guys think would be perfect for Brian Flores.
Jacksonville?
Well, somebody's got to go to Jacksonville because that's a mess.
I don't know. It's pretty close to
It's not much of a media.
It's pretty close to the Republican trust politically in that part of the state. I'm not sure that would be a good idea.
Where are Feistinist right now? Because I'm looking at you as if you're like stuck in a toll somehow.
Well, here's the problem. We're homeless, and now we're doing the podcast out of the car.
You're homeless.
I'm doing Jim's show that starts at noon. I'd never be able to make it over here if I did the podcast from home at 10.
And we were supposed to get into the restaurant to set up in there, but they never opened the door for us.
Oh.
They told us they would, and then they didn't do it.
Ah, all right. You guys look like you're like paying a toll.
My hands get tired holding the podcast, the iPad.
And just kind of keep in mind, this is what the lawsuit is for. Brian Flores filed a press-grabbing lawsuit accusing the National Football League and its clubs of racially discriminatory hiring practices, the Miami Dolphins of terminating him because he is black, again with the general manager who's black, and the New York Giants and Denver Broncos of not hiring him because he is black.
I think he would take that back if he could. I also think.
I also don't know that he could ever prove that.
I also think that. Look, man, I do know the Miami Dolphins because of their media setup, and I'm really good friends with a lot of. Like I lived with Joe Shad, he still covers them. Real good friends with Chris Perkins, Ethan Skolnick, all those guys that like have covered the Dolphins forever. Stephen Ross is a moron, has been.
There you go, right there. That maybe there's something that happened between the owner and Flores that isn't public.
Has been, yeah. I mean, this is a franchise that hired Nick Saban, and Saban wanted out immediately. That Saban was given immediate power to pick Dante Culpepper, who I'm partisan for, over Drew Brees. This is a team that's somewhat cursed. And it's cursed by bad decisions. So, I mean, do I think Brian Flores would not do this again if he had the opportunity? Sure. Do I think that he probably felt at the time, I'm going to strong arm because I don't want to be strong armed? Probably. It was probably.
I would say that if there's a management ownership team that thinks he can win football games based upon what he's done, that they would hire him. That's right.
And then
winning.
He goes to Minnesota, and I mean that's a top 5 defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's no questioning how good he is as a coordinator.
What I is that if he is qualified and goes for interviews, if he gets 4 or 5 interviews, it's obvious that people think he's qualified. If he doesn't get a job, maybe it's been the league that says he's blackballed. I don't know how you prove it, but it certainly gives you the indications that could be a possibility.
And we've got people blackballed right now. John Gruden's blackballed. I mean, it's a
not by anyone saying it, but by the actions or the lack of it.
That's something we're going to find out.
Bottom line, I mean, and you have to be really good among your 32, or it has to be your time, and you get a shot. Like honestly, if I'm the city of Cincinnati, with Joe Burrow as an MVP candidate this year, with the number 1 receiver in the league that you don't want to pay, I want nothing to do with Zach Taylor. I mean, that's easy option number 1.
We talked about it before. I'll get your views on this, Tony, because I was mentioning before. How about the history of 4 starts in September that go back 5 or 6 years with him? I mean, that could be reason enough.
I think he's an offensive coordinator. I
agree with that. I think that's exactly what he should do.
You know what? That might be a really good, because when you're thinking about ownership, the Bengals ownership might be the type of ownership that I could see, and the community that I could see Brian Flores going to. Especially imagine you put Brian Flores, he puts a defense with the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow on the other side. That could be something that could work.
they got to get their hands up, stop sitting on their hands, and start paying Higgins and Chase and these guys.
No, they can't. They can't. No. Chase, they should, but they cannot pay Higgins and Chase. They just can't.
Right.
They can't afford it. So Higgins
And by
is
the way,
gone. He's
and
not
also
coming back.
lessen Brian Flores' argument, because if you remember, previous coach of Cincinnati, who was it? The Marvin Lewis. He was there for like 10 years, turned the franchise around, got him to
You're
playoffs
right.
5 or 6 years.
See,
Didn't win.
point.
Didn't
Marvin
win playoff
Lewis
games.
is black, so that's not going to be a problem.
But he turned that franchise around and was there, I think, about 8 or 10 years.
And by the way, the Jets wouldn't be a problem either. That's not a bit of price. You can see with Salah. That wouldn't be a problem with them either. The problem is, of course, if you're a Jet fan, you don't want anything to do with another defensive coach. But anyway, that's a different story.
And you'd like to have an owner who doesn't rely on Madden ratings.
Since Tony, I think Tony knows the quality of the ownership of these teams better than some of us. I'd like him to tell us the 5 worst owners. If he wants to say it. I don't know if he wants to say it.
I have no problem with saying it. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to do that with the NBA, but NFL, I don't know anybody there. Woody Johnson's got to be bottom 5.
Yep.
Just from what we've seen out of his tendencies to not get along with anybody. Stephen Ross, right there. Who owns the Chargers? Is it Spanos?
Spanos, yeah.
Spanos
is, yeah.
But they just hired Hobart.
But
I'll tell you the one that comes to mind. Cleveland.
They're on the come up.
Haslam.
Yeah. How about Cleveland, Tony?
But,
Yeah,
Haslam does spend money. He just doesn't spend it wisely.
Yes, and that I think is I think there's a willingness to spend, but you just spend poorly, So if you make bad decisions, look, Arthur Blank is in that boat. I mean, I think he's tried. He's a guy that's willing to win. But
what I like about him is he stays out of the decision making process.
Right, and he's got Home Depot money, so it's like bottomless pit. But it's
where would you put Jerry Jones?
The way he's been acting lately, near the bottom.
When you look at the results, at the money he's spent, the decisions to even go back to the decision to fire Jimmy Johnson because Johnson was getting too much credit, and then Barry Switzer and all that, and he's become a little bit more normal in the last 10 years, but he still doesn't.
We've seen this year. All right, look, if ESPN is telling you, because again, ESPN, I love Mina Kimes. I think she's great. There are certain voices that I don't care for on the ESPN platform. But if everybody is universally telling you, hey, you're the Cowboys and you haven't done anything this offseason, and then the season begins the way it did, and then Jerry Jones is defending himself on his, who goes on the radio every Thursday as an owner, or Tuesday, whatever it is?
Nobody.
To defend himself, and then ends up saying, I can fire all of you. Who are you to question me? Again, this is a man that clearly thinks that his way is the way everybody should be, but he hasn't won in over 2 decades.
30 years.
About 27 years, I believe.
And how he won, he ended up getting Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin, and the best offensive line. So it was,
and that was Jimmy. So
that was Jimmy, absolutely.
Jimmy. So yeah, look, there is that's the problem is you got and honestly, you can put 16 owners in one basket, and a lot of them haven't done well. And I think we're going to find out, including Jim Irsay. We're going to find out on Monday. It's the whole reason we brought this up. A lot of these guys that we're talking about, including Woody Johnson, Jim Irsay, and these guys, prove it. Let's see how good you are. Who are you hiring as your head coach? Who are you firing? Who's your GM? And
again, this is an entirely different conversation, but
the little rest helps.
You go with an Irsay, you go with a Jerry Jones, they care. They might be inept, but they damn sure care. I'm not sure Woody Johnson cares.
Why? What do you mean he doesn't care?
Because clearly there are other things in his life that he and again.
Like what?
Q-tips. Johnson & Johnson.
He actually doesn't work for Johnson & Johnson.
Isn't he going to be the ambassador to somewhere? Like,
Well, he was.
Then who's going to run the show? Is his brother's going to run the show?
right, but that's my point. Like, so clearly this is a man that has other, like, I think that number one in Jim Irsay's life with the Colts, number one in Jerry Jones's life with the
Okay,
Cowboys.
so you would rather have the owner like Jerry Jones that's constantly middling and getting involved with everything and
As opposed
getting
to
in
Woody
trouble.
Johnson, who sucks and doesn't care. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, you know, and then who? But again, Woody
And you're in the
Johnson
New
has
York
no
market.
problem spending money.
No,
And
they've tried some stuff, sure.
and the
I'm
same,
gonna give
and
an
as far
example that
as
goes-
and by the way,
that goes
when he
way
brought in
back.
Aaron Rodgers, I didn't hear anybody complaining. Everybody
What-
was
what-
like,
what-
"Hey, the Jets are going to be a Super Bowl contender this year." Almost everybody. Nobody was saying anything negative about Woody Johnson.
Because they had a great
and-
defense
What,
to back
what-
up as
what do
well.
you think? What do you think the whole Woody Aaron Rodgers irreparable thing is about?
I think it's all. What do you mean that he's not going to be back? You mean?
No, somebody said. I just read it. Somebody said that situation is irreparable.
I probably believe it.
But what do you think it's about?
We don't.
Well,
know
I
what
think
it's about.
Aaron Rodgers is difficult to get along with personally.
Yeah, we don't know
Right.
what it's about. All I know what it's not
I
about.
don't know the man, but
It's not about his son and his video games. All right, that's what I know. It's not about.
I haven't even heard that. What's that?
Yeah, that's some stupid thing about some idiot saying something about how he's telling his father what to do based on Madden scores or something like that. It's so
Yeah.
fucking stupid.
That
That's
had
New
to do
York-
with
that's the New York
Jerry,
media.
The potential Jerry
Bunch
Judy
of fucking
trade that they
idiots.
said wasn't true.
They're just so they're such morons. Those people.
I'm going to give you an example, perfect example. For many years, the Giants were one of the best teams in the league, going back into the 50s, into the 60s. And then they started to hire former players in executive decisions, general managers, etc., coaches, whatever, and they were terrible. Pete Rozelle got involved, I want to say it was like 1979, talked about this guy named George Young, who had started his career, I think he was with Baltimore,
Yeah.
and then he was with the Dolphins, and the Giants hired him and
Yep.
turned everything over to him. And the Giants went on from there to be one of the most successful franchises for probably the next 25 to 30 years.
Until
But they
He
turned it
left.
over to football.
until he left, until George Young left, until he got too old and he couldn't do it anymore. That's it's a perfect point. And that's
the
why
Bidwells were
even-
the same way with the Cardinals.
And that's why, yeah, absolutely. Actually, yeah, a lot of people thought that I know with the whole Bidwell thing, that was, everybody was really concerned exactly what was going on there. But, ever since the switchover, they've done a much better job. They're much better run. And you talk about like the Jet situation. Look, they hired Joe Douglas. And when they did that, everybody applauded him for it. They thought Joe Douglas was one of the top executives, learned under Ozzie Newsome. Great hire. They thought Robert Saleh was a great hire. These things happen. And then sooner or later, you have to get lucky and hire the right guy. And
I do think Salah got a raw deal this year. I think he kowtowed to Rodgers a little too much.
Well, then
I don't-
if
they
he kowtowed
brought
to
in
Rodgers, then I
Rodgers.
guess Rodgers will
They
be
even
back next
brought in
year.
Rodgers' offensive coordinator.
Hackett.
Exactly.
Who?
Way too many decisions.
Oh, that guy.
Nathaniel.
Yeah, but again, Robert Saleh has, trust me, he's made enough bad decisions. He doesn't deserve to get anybody's,
If I knew nothing about a team, about its players, formation, strengths and weaknesses, but I knew the history of the coach and the history of the ownership, I'd bet on those teams. If I knew nothing else and I had to make a bet, I'd go with the quality of the foundation of the organization. If I knew I had a strong foundation, because they'll have look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, they've had 3 head coaches in 50-something years. Okay, that's a stable organization. And look at Tomlin's record. No, he's been there 15, 16 years. No losing season because it's a stable organization. They don't, they don't make rash decisions, and that's the word I can only use. Stable.
The funny thing is, there are a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans that are not happy. They got spoiled.
Yeah,
They don't know what it's like to be
That's
on
like
the other
Patriot
side.
fans this year.
Just like the Patriot fans. They don't know what it's like. A lot of the young ones don't have any idea about what life was like before Belichick. So things were really bad in New England before Bill Belichick came along. So, all right, let's, before we get just quickly.
By the way, same with the Eagles for many years until Andy Reid came around in the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The Eagles were a mess. Dick Vermeil, they had some good runs there, but then that was about
between
it.
Vermeil and Andy Reid,
They were pretty bad. Yeah. All right. So we're going to see another college football game today. by time this show is available, maybe the game will be on the air and you'll be able to watch it. We all know why, unfortunately, but it is it's just the way the life is, and it is what it is. So we're getting a game today. We thought we were going to get last night, but we got a. If someone would have told you that out of the 2 games yesterday, one was a classic and the other was a blowout, I think 99% would have guessed the opposite. And we got the classic with the Arizona State-Texas game. And I haven't talked to any of you guys, obviously, about this, but all I want to say regarding that game is that, and I know I'm not saying the guy should be fired, but the defensive coordinator for Arizona State is a fucking asshole. How in the world do you call a blitz on 4th and 13 when the other team is folding in front of you? You got players you left and right looking like they're choking. Everybody is just dead. It's done. The game is over. And you call a blitz. And then you call a blitz.
I read today that that Arizona, the Texas worked on 4th and 13 and expected a blitz.
And by the way, did you see the blitz, how it was? Everybody's at the line of scrimmage for Arizona State for about 10 seconds. You could see Quinn Ewers had all the time in the world to call the play he wanted to call, and they still blitzed. It was like, if you're going to blitz, can you like disguise it at least? It was such a bad call, and it just, I just couldn't believe it.
I've never understood why any defense, as they're getting set for a play, is not in some kind of motion. I mean, because all of a sudden you see motion.
They were just standing there.
A momentary thought comes into the quarterback's mind. Oh, what's he doing? That takes away from his focus.
Anyway, I just couldn't believe that after everything, Arizona State had put themselves in that position. So Texas goes ahead and wins the football game, and now they're going to take on Ohio State. And I believe we will be on the air.
6.5 points.
Game. So we're going to be on the air most likely next Wednesday. The game is on Friday.
Friday, yeah.
Yeah, the Orange Bowl is Thursday. So the Cotton Bowl is on Friday night. But yeah, like you guys said, the line is 6. I'm not really surprised about the line. You guys, I thought the line, I thought it could have been 7.
I think
it's too much of an overreaction.
I think it's too high.
Yeah.
I'm not a college guy.
I could say 3, 3.5.
I think it's an awful high number. Well, Tony, what do you think?
I mean, look, I think that Ohio State is finally playing like they were expected to all year. And I've taken L's on both of these games, Tennessee and Oregon. So definitely,
you're not doing it again.
How do you?
So you're not going to do it again?
How do you?
No, I mean, I'll look at the game clean slate.
Well, don't do it again.
How do you explain Oregon coming out in that? I mean, their play calling was just atrocious.
Well, they were just flat.
Yeah,
completely flat.
I mean,
it really was.
How can you dive into the line on first down every time? The same play every time, and it never works. How do you keep doing that?
Gabriel was at a sink almost immediately.
Yeah, it was bad.
I was on Boise too. I mean, it's been a bad week. I was on Boise too.
Yeah, but at least Boise, they were competing.
Q2, like obviously, there's gonna be 8 in the box against Genty, but then you're not playing to your strengths. They had that game at 14-7 where they were back in it. And blew a couple opportunities to tie.
Well, they got within. They would have been within 3 points if it wasn't for the 15-yard personal foul penalty on the offensive lineman. They scored a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they had their chances. I mean, look. I think Texas is probably 3.5. That should be the max based on what we've seen Ohio State. So 6 is too high.
All right. So I guess we'll find out what happens today. And all I'm going to say is this: if it happens again and the SEC continues to look as overrated as any conference has ever looked in any season in football, then I'm sorry, but Ohio State's going to kick the living shit out of Texas because Texas is overrated. We saw it again.
I will say this. I mean, like if anybody's watching, I think I said it last week. I've got Georgia as my best bet for this CFB, which doesn't mean much because I've lost on Boise and I've lost on Oregon. I like those two a lot, but I think I don't see how this kid Gunnar Stockton is worth what ended up being now 7 points? Because wasn't the line 6?
I saw the line today for Notre Dame, Georgia. Georgia was a favorite, 1.5. I saw Notre Dame a 1-point favorite this morning.
Notre Dame's +1, -1.
Why?
Minus
What was the line? What do you mean? You mean
The
Georgia
initial
had them
line
favored.
before.
you mean if Beck
before,
would have been quarterback, it would have been 6?
It was 6.
I'm just talking
Well,
about
I mean,
24 hours. The line went from Georgia
Yeah.
1.5, Notre Dame 1.
But the initial line before Beck was ruled out was Georgia -6.
Yeah.
And now then it went to pick 'em. Then it was Georgia -1, Notre Dame -1. Now it's Notre Dame -1. So again, I don't see how you do that because everybody else is involved. Oh, there's no other injuries, and this kid is. We saw him in the SEC championship game. Definitely looked fine. He was a 5-star recruit. I mean, this isn't Stetson Bennett, and Stetson Bennett won a national championship where Stetson Bennett was a walk-on.
Well, Stetson Bennett had a much better supporting cast, though.
Yeah.
Oh, by a
Much
lot.
better.
By a
Yeah.
lot. No
And the
question about that.
defense was much better than he had last year.
And he was a veteran, but I mean, I just think that you're overrating Carson Beck in this game on
I hear you.
on this line,
Yeah.
and then if this kid can play the way we saw him play,
Sure.
they should be fine against Notre Dame. So,
That's what I'm saying. If Georgia
Notre-
loses this
Notre
game,
Dame's
then
being-
it's
I think
just.
Notre
then
Dame's being
I've heard enough.
Notre
of
Dame's
the
being
SEC.
underrated because of their defense. Nobody disrespects the defense of the Irish.
Notre Dame,
Yeah.
Well, but look at the injuries. You lose your defensive
Yeah.
captain.
You lost your 2 best defensive players.
Yeah, you've had 2.5. What do you have? 2.5 weeks to prepare, or 10 days to prepare.
No, it'll be. This is going to. Hopefully, it lives up to the hype and it's a great game. But I just value-wise, I think it's Georgia clearly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hear you. I'm not.
Oh, the
absolutely.
experience does count for a lot, obviously. Especially Kirby Smart.
I definitely think that the. By the way, the line we got is pretty much the same right now with the Penn State game. It looks like the line is no matter what going to be Penn State 1-point dog at this point, no matter who they would play, which I'm a little bit surprised. I don't know why they would put Penn State as a 1-point dog against Notre Dame. Maybe it's because it's just the fact that, look, Boise State did put more yards on the field than Penn State, and I get all that. Maybe the game could have been a lot closer. But the thing I think that's really important in that one as well is the health of Abdul Carter. He better play if you're a Penn State fan. If he doesn't play, that is a huge, huge loss. So
I think the one thing that we absolutely need, because I'm tired of seeing on social media all these people wanting to fix the college football playoff already in its first year. Leave it at 12. Let's let it play out. What I do think should happen, especially since we've made this a TV show every freaking week, is let's let the top-ranked teams pick their opponent. I think that's the easiest.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
Why not?
Pick their opponent? No, that's not going to happen.
You pick your if you're number 1 seeded. First of all, the conference championship seeding thing, I think everybody.
Well, that'll make it a lot easier if they get rid of that. That'll make it a lot easier.
And then if you're the number 1 seed, you got after 9 through 12 play, pick who you want to play.
Besides, I mean, just imagine. Oh, we want to play them. I mean, come on. The other teams.
That's great.
It's just, I know it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to do that. So
I'll tell you why I'd love to see it, because that would produce some upsets. You just don't know which ones.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
Well, it is interesting that, and a matter of fact, Mark had this in the Coffee Club email today. And he talked about how Texas, Penn State, and Ohio State all lost their last game before appearing in the college football playoff. Each of those schools then won their opening round home playoff game, advanced to the quarterfinals, and are now in the Final Four. Would the Ducks have been better off with an opening round game at Autzen Stadium instead of a long layoff? The conference championship game winners in general weren't winners. Clemson, ACC champs, out. Boise, Mountain West champ, out. Arizona State, Big 12 champ, out. Oregon, Big 10 champ, out. If Georgia loses to Notre Dame Sugar Bowl today, then not only are the top 4 seeds of the playoffs eliminated, but all 5 conference champions would be out. So
Wow.
what does that tell you about
Rest versus rust.
Rest versus rust, exactly.
I think we all said that Ohio State was very poorly seeded. That if Georgia could be a number 2 seed, even though Ohio State didn't play in the Big Ten.
Oregon is the one. Oregon had a playoff.
Oregon
Oregon got a seed. Imagine that.
I mean, you play a rematch against a team in your conference that you've beaten. That's
you beat by like what, 1
generally
point or 2
regarded as
points?
the best
Yeah.
team.
Everybody
So,
knew that
yeah,
that game was going to be, well, we all thought it was going to be really closely contested. And unfortunately, we did not get that. So, yeah. And it also shows you how sometimes it's, especially if you're not there and you haven't done it before, to be undefeated going into the playoffs. You haven't lost yet. You don't have that feeling of losing. And there's a little added pressure of being the number one undefeated team. They couldn't handle it.
Well, they looked absolutely horrendous. I mean, I'm happy I had Ohio State in the over, but I couldn't believe how bad they looked.
34 nothing out of the bat.
I could not believe the play calling, and I haven't followed college. I've been following people that follow college, and this year, and the play calling Oregon had was on offense was horrible. I couldn't believe it was just so stale. It was every time you knew exactly what they were going to do.
I wonder if Gabriel wasn't 100%.
But he doesn't call the plays, though.
No, but I mean, maybe the coaching staff knew.
The coaching staff was on
No.
drugs.
They had the force feed Taz, and it was on short little screen passes and that end around. It was bad. And then look, you gotta credit Ohio State they went for the throat when they had the opportunity.
Well, absolutely.
They did the same thing they did against Tennessee. They crushed them early and
never let up.
Yeah, and it just does show you how the importance of playing those games. Matter of fact, Andy, you talked about it when we went over the seeding and the brackets about how don't be surprised if everybody looks at these situations similar to the first four in college basketball, where you come out of there,
get on a run.
And you get on a run, and I don't know, these teams. And by the way, they have talked about adding teams. And adding teams might eliminate the buys. So if they do that, everybody might play a first round game anyway. Which the way it looks, I think that's what they would.
They'd have to basically add 4 teams to get to 16.
Yeah, and I think they have been talking about doing it. So
the FCS format is interesting because I think they have 16. They have 24 teams, and I think 16 of them play the first week to get them down to 16.
I'm going to go over, because we haven't done these enough in our last couple of minutes. We had some other interesting tidbits from the Coffee Club emails. Let's see. I know that Mark had this comment, quote of the day. What a cool moment. And there's a picture of golf influencer Paige Sporanic. And it says, golf influencer Paige Sporanic commenting on 15-year-old Charlie Woods, Tiger's son, on his first hole-in-one last week. And again, the quote is, what a cool moment. And the first thing I'm thinking about with this, I'm going, I don't understand. Well, okay. And I'm thinking, oh, of course, why wouldn't you? What an excuse, Mark, for putting Paige Sporanic in your newsletter. There's that. any way you can find an excuse to put Paige Sporanic in your newsletter, I'm all for it. So let's see.
And I agree.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see some of these other, let's see, we have some of these questions for Mark. All right. So this is an interesting one. Ron N from Lexington wants to know, with new online sports books has come a new option to wagering, the cash out option. Could give you your opinion. Could you give your opinion on this new aspect of sports gaming? Mark says yes.
Like it.
All right. Well, first we'll get Mark's, and then Andy, you could I want all your opinions. Mark says yes. Basically, it's a hedge option. In the pending bets section, the sportsbook offers a negative or positive number to cash out on a play during the event. Let's say if you bet $100 on a 3-team parlay, and the chances of you winning progressively get stronger as legs become final or become evident, the sportsbook calculates a cash out back into your account in addition to the amount of your bet. For example, the parlay pays $600 and 2 legs are winning or complete. The sportsbook could offer you a cash out of $350 plus your $100 bet. They do this on straight bets too, even to the point that your bet might be losing, and they might offer you a smaller amount than your bet placed back into your account. Andy, you are not in favor of this.
No, I'm not the strategy. The strategy is great. What they offer you is terrible if you do the math.
Do you have any other?
You're never going to get a fair deal on the price. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Do you
Oh, you
have
do
any
hedges
other-
all the time. I mean,
It's pretty well known that they screw you.
Yeah,
on the
a
pass.
normal hedge is you got two parts of a 3-team parlay in, let's say, okay, and you go bet the other side, and you get yourself maybe a nice little opportunity there to get 3 or 4 extra points. And you got your base, and you could have a middle in there as well, possibly, depending on how you do it. So, but what they offer you is, and like you said, sometimes they don't even offer you back your full amount that you bet,
Right.
and you're in a good position, or maybe you're not in a great position because let's say the teams that you need are losing, and they want, and some people will say, and again, there's a wide marketplace out there. We all have different goals. We all have different approaches, and some people might say, you know what? Okay, I paid $100. I'm about to lose 100. Oh, they're going to give me 70. I'll take the 70. That's how they make a lot of money at the sports books.
And the only caveat is if you're privy to an injury that you weren't, counting on.
When you made the bet, sure.
Jordan A. from Jacksonville wants to know, I read where former NFL coach John Gruden is campaigning for the NFL to change its rule on pass interference. What is it, and do you agree? Mark says, you are correct. Gruden wants to see the NFL ditch its current down and distance rule on pass interference to a 15-yard penalty, the same as college football. And I wholeheartedly agree with him. And Gruden spoke about this in his time on Monday Night Football, where he worked with former NFL referee Jerry Austin. He taught me that pass interference should call itself. We should all be sitting in a bar in Chicago and go, that's pass interference. That's how it should be. It's a common, obvious pass interference. Otherwise, let these guys play. That's my feeling. Minimizing the penalty yardage would make it a more minor part of the game. No one watches football to see defensive pass interference calls. On the other side of the coin, we know a lot of plays in college where the defender realizes he's been beaten and pulls the receiver down. It's a clever play, but also takes away a big, exciting one. Of all the differences in how college football and the NFL are officiated, pass interference infractions may be the most significant in terms of their impact on the game. It's not hard to look around and find examples of NFL contests that have swung severely on a 50-50 call that suddenly turns into a 50-yard penalty and 7 points. I hope Gruden wins this argument. The NFL needs it. What do you guys think?
I would say initially, at the very least, questionable calls or non-calls that result or don't result in penalties should be reviewable. Second, in most instances, or certainly in many instances, you could call offensive pass interference as easily as you could call defensive pass interference. It's just a question of interpretation and what the official sees at that instant that he's throwing the penalty flag, not necessarily what he saw before. The third thing is, at the very least, they should use the down and distance, let's say in the final 3 minutes of the game or something, so that you know that someone's going to try and throw a Hail Mary and there might be pass interference there. Maybe they're trying to draw the PI, the defender stops or something. Make it at least down and distance at that point. So I would agree. I would like to see a 15-yard penalty at all times.
I think the penalty, the 60-yard pass penalty, and it's too onerous. I think 15 would be right.
I don't. My only. I don't really care. My only point that I would be gung-ho about is I think pass interference should be reviewed. 1,000,000%.
100%.
Yep.
100% it should be.
Yep.
There was a hit.
You want to call
There
it
was a hit in
or,
one of those games yesterday.
Targeting. The one that they didn't call
the targeting. How could that not be targeting?
Oh, the Texas
he
game.
practically took the guy's head off.
Yeah, and I mean they went on to miss the field goal, but that could have changed the entire drive.
Another one like that, and I forget which NFL game it was. It was one of the important games within the last 2 or 3 weeks where they called a roughing the quarterback call when the guy was already up in the air. The ball hadn't been released. He had no place to land but on the quarterback's chest.
Oh,
I mean, you have to use some common sense.
Like you can generally put the quarterback on the ground with like a pillow beneath his head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a terrible penalty.
Wow.
That's a new added equipment as a pillow.
Yeah, the fact that Arizona State couldn't take advantage of those 2 missed field goals.
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, that kid, by the way, is considered one of the top kickers in the nation this year.
Yeah,
I've always understood why you can't have offensive linemen move when the defensive linemen are moving around. You're still 11 on 11.
So,
why should one team have an advantage?
Is Scatabo a first-round pick?
No, not even close.
What do you mean no?
He's not.
because he's
Now,
short.
yeah, because of the fact that
He's powerful, though.
he's
He
not.
looks like he's about 5'7", 5'8".
Yeah,
I'll tell you
Did
what.
you see him with Arch Manning?
Somebody that can run the ball and throw the ball like he can, he's valuable.
No, he's
yeah.
he's
I mean, look,
a
he might have just gained a couple of rounds, but he was probably honestly a couple of weeks ago, he was probably looked at as like a 5th or 6th round draft pick.
yeah.
Now, maybe
so-
he's moved up a little bit. I look, that's not
That
the
was
way I
impressed
think.
with his arm.
Yeah.
I do
Oh,
think
that-
he's like
I
a
like legs.
more of a
Yes,
3rd round guy.
that's for sure.
So it's Genty and the kid from North Carolina.
Oh, it is so deep. The running back classes this year. I'm actually going to do a video on this because it's so big.
my guy RJ Harvey.
My God.
You got your Harvey, you got Hampton, you got Genty, as you mentioned. James, the kid of Oregon, is going to be a good one.
Oh yeah.
You got Singleton and Allen out of Penn State in their backfield. We still don't know about Ollie Gordon. I mean, he could turn out to still be good. I mean, he was great last year. You got a whole bunch of other guys that I'm not going to. There's tons of. Henderson from Ohio State. I mean, there's a whole bunch. This is going to be a really deep class of running backs talent.
My hand is
A lot better than the quarterback talent, that's for sure. A couple others here. For some inexplicable reason, ESPN doesn't have 4K streaming available for the Fiesta Bowl. To make matters worse, none of the 3 college football games scheduled for New Year's Day will be available in 4K. College football fans will ultimately have to settle for watching the games in HD quality. Sure, HD isn't the worst format in the world, but it's not nearly as sharp as 4K. I bring this up only because when I read that, I'm like, are we really at that point in time that we're looking at HD as some sort of like weak way of watching television? I mean, I don't know. Do you guys remember where you were when you first watched HD? Because I do. When I first saw it, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, what is this? This is so unbelievable. I thought it was on drugs. Everything was so clear.
You thought you were looking at a picture, a painting,
Yes.
like a portrait
Yes.
in a museum.
So it's just so funny how that quickly that was HD. Now we're going to be starting to talk a lot more college basketball and baseball in the coming weeks. We promised it once the calendar year turned over. We're going to be doing much more of that here in the coming weeks, especially with not much more college football to talk about real soon. Baseball, it's going to take a little while, but there is a lot going on. And matter of fact, hopefully Andy and Tony will be able to get together and put together like a nice little hot stove winter report here on the channel. But I wanted to bring this up because of we forgot to mention Juan Soto's record-breaking contract, which happened a few weeks ago, that he agreed to a 15-year, $765 million deal with the Mets. So that means he's going to earn $51 million a year, $140,000 a day, $6,000 an hour, and $100 a minute.
$100 a minute.
Well, we can start a GoFundMe for him because he's a little underpaid.
You got to wonder how Pete Alonso feels about it, and I don't blame Pete Alonso one bit, because all the money that Soto made is part of that could have gone to keep Pete Alonso. He may still resign, but if I'm Alonso, I would certainly be looking for reasonable offers elsewhere.
They're far apart from what I saw. Look, I'm a Yankees fan. The Yankees offered 16 and 760, I guess. So it was like $5 million less in an extra year. So he clearly wanted to go to the Mets. Mets is almost a predominantly Spanish clubhouse. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that hearing as a very interested party, but like the back channel stuff, I guess him and Aaron Judge weren't as tight as a lot of people thought they would be. Like Judge didn't hear from him after the season ended. So I mean, look,
what was the story, Tony, about the Yankees' refusal? What was it, to give Soto a luxury box or something? And that was part of the problem.
We're still Steinbrenner run as we've been my whole life.
Soto really needs to get a free box. He can't pay for it himself.
If you want that guy on your team for the next 15
years, I have no problem asking for it. But if you're not going to give it to you, then just pay it yourself. Jesus.
The one thing that
I think it's about disrespect.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's
on whose side? On whose side?
The Yankees should have given it
The
to him.
Yankees
for God's
side,
sake.
okay.
He's offered
You
him
know,
16 years, 760 million.
Yeah,
How
that's
hard-
disrespectful.
How hard is it to get a player
Come
like
on.
that? You're not going to give him the box? Come on. How about a cheeserburger?
So
Yeah,
it's
you know.
disrespectful to give him $765 million.
Give him a box if he wants a box.
Where have we
it's
gone?
Can you ever explain feelings? Feelings don't always make sense.
Yeah.
No?
Well, you know what? He probably shouldn't have signed it.
The one thing that we'll miss about Juan Soto as New York Yankee people is that guy had a ridiculous eye, and he might have the biggest ego in the world, but as a hitter, he had no ego. He would take the walk, and you do that in front of Aaron Judge enough. That's 2 runs. That's 2 runs. That's 2 runs. We'll miss that.
You don't have to say that anything about Juan Soto because I'm a Nationals fan, and he was our guy.
Yeah.
And the fact now, I was just starting to get back into baseball again, following all my prospects. And this year was going to 2025 is finally going to be the year where I could start paying attention to baseball again. And then Juan Soto does this and puts him in the same division
but
as
Greg,
my team.
At least, Greg, your Nationals have won a World Series more recently than the Yankees.
It's true.
Well, that is true.
And C.J. Abrams is finally playing.
Yes, there's a lot of talent there, a lot of young talent. Finally, and again, we're going to be talking
The only
college
thing that's tough
basketball.
about the Nationals is that you got Atlanta, Philly, and the Mets in that division. That's a very stacked division, and the Marlins have some good young talent.
Tough division.
Yeah.
We're going to be
Patrick
talking a lot.
Corbin back on the Nationals?
No, he's done.
Oh, he's gone now?
Yeah.
'Cause that's why you
They-
signed Trevor Williams.
Yeah, they got much better pitching now. They got a lot of really cool pitchers now. They got this kid in the minors that's just been like awesome. He's their number 1 prospect now. Every major conference has a strong record so far, but the SEC, and this happened about a couple of weeks ago, so keep in mind, but the SEC with its mind-boggling 878 winning percentage is in another stratosphere. You have the SEC at 87% win percentage. Big 12 is at 74%. Big 10,
You're talking
73.
hoops.
Big East is at 68, and the ACC is at 63%. By the numbers, the SEC is 55-17 against major conferences, 42-6 against the ACC and Big 12, and 17-8 against ranked opponents. Already the most non-conference top 25 wins of any league has ever amassed in a single regular season. The SEC has 5 of the top 7 teams in that week's AP poll, 8 ranked teams overall, which is 3 more than any other league. They also have 3 more undefeated teams at the time, and maybe they're still undefeated: Tennessee, Florida, Oklahoma, and the rest of Division I combined, which was just Utah State and Drake. What they're saying, ESPN bracketologist Joel Lenardi didn't have to think long when asked for one word to describe the SEC start of the season: outrageous. I've been doing this a long time, and what they're doing is a collective and unprecedented. Looking ahead, all this early success could result in a record number of NCAA bids on Selection Sunday. Lenardi's most recent bracketology projection has 12 SEC schools in the field. That would break the 2011 Big East record if it holds. So
Now, keep in mind they also have the most teams in a conference, as well as just getting a couple of really good basketball.
What is it, 18?
at Oklahoma? I think it's 18.
either way, man, that SEC is just killing it. Florida intrigues me the most. There's something about, I like the way they're playing. If I had to favor any of those teams right now, I'd favor Florida. That's the team I'm looking at. Tony, do you have like a favorite SEC team right now?
Oh, I mean, I think Auburn is loaded. I like Zakai Ziegler. He's a Queens kid. Probably the best floor general in the country. So I like Tennessee a little bit. But I could see their holes. Look, here's the deal. I think that this is kind of one of those things that we probably won't see again. UConn is down. There's no question about that. St. John's is up, and then the rest of the Big East is down.
Yeah.
The ACC is down. You've got
Georgetown's having a good year, Tony.
Yeah, they're back a little bit.
They're
but
better.
like the ACC, you've got Larinaga step down. Obviously Duke
Tony
and North
Bennett
Carolina.
earlier.
Huh?
Tony Bennett stepped down.
Yeah, Tony Bennett stepped down. Duke and North
We'll see him.
Carolina have taken a step backwards. So I don't think we'll see this kind of dominance again from the SEC. But yeah, you got to tip your hat. They are absolutely loaded, and the best teams are there. And then you've got the Pac-12 obviously disbanded. So there's a little bit of that as well. Although Dana Altman has Oregon cooking. I don't think any of the other. Oh yeah, I guess UCLA is back. But all the other teams that left the Pac-12 are probably not as high as they were before. But yeah, I mean, look, it should be another fun tournament, and I would not be surprised if Auburn wins it all, because they, to me, look like the most complete team, and depth-wise, I think they're 1 through 11. So
Bruce Pearl, his best team yet.
He's got to load it. When they had that fight on the plane, do you remember that? Early this season, they had 2 of their freshmen just knocked each other out on the plane, and they had to like reverse course and get to where their destination was like a day later. And the quote was, "When you have this many dogs on a team, you're bound to have some sort of conflict." And that was the quote. They are pretty good.
Well, we're going to be diving into college basketball real soon. Not only will Andy and Tony be doing some baseball talk, they'll definitely going to be contributing with college hoops. Jim and I will be making a little gradual switch from football to college basketball ourselves on our weekly shows. So you can check that out here at Proline TV. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. All of that stuff is real important. And even if you're just, hey, you know what, I like watching the show, but it's the only show I watch, I don't need to subscribe. Just keep in mind, subscribing to our show really helps to support the channel. And if you want to support what we're doing and like to see and hear what we do each week, then supporting us, the best way to do it is subscribing. So, guys, gentlemen, Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody. Yes.
May it be a very healthy and prosperous 2025 for everybody out there. And when we see everybody again, I believe we'll be on Wednesday of next week with this show. And I think the whole group will be together again. So that'll be a lot of fun to get Mark back. Of course, Victor's off. They're both off, by the way, because they're both dealing with the same situation. They just moved their offices. And so they're going through a big conflict there of constantly dealing with, having to deal with the internet and all that other stuff. So it's a lot of work, especially around the holidays. So can't wait to get those guys back. And next week, we'll be able to come on just before the college football semifinals. So we'll preview that. And
we won't be homeless next week.
And you guys will put a couple of bets together between then and make all your money back, and you'll get back in your home. So we'll see. I'll see you, Jim, on Saturday. Yes. I believe we're going to be on the air on Saturday again. Are we waiting until Saturday again this week?
Yeah.
Injury reports.
8 o'clock? Is it 8 o'clock?
Let me get one thing out there before if we're going to go, because I thought this was interesting. So Geno Smith, obviously the Seahawks are done, and the Rams have wrapped up the NFC West. But if he goes past career highs on Sunday, and I'm reading this verbatim, so I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. This is from USA Today. If he gets $2 million, if he gets 186 more yards, if his completion percentage is over whatever it is right now, and if he gets Seattle to 10 wins, $2 million, he's got $6 million on the line on Sunday.
Wow.
Now we understand why the line's gone from 3 to 6.5.
Right.
And we also understand that those offensive linemen are looking at some pretty nice bonuses from that.
I'm sure Geno hooks it up.
I heard something about Evans for the Buccaneers, that he gets $3 million if he's seen so many yards. And Baker said
85 yards and 5 more catches.
If we're winning, Baker says if we're winning, he's getting the yards.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of money.
And then Jamar Chase has the Triple Crown thing going on. So there's a lot of I do player prop stuff on Prize Picks and things like that. So yeah, I'll be all over that stuff. And just
a lot of incentives that could be reached this final week that a lot of people don't take into account when betting the teams. And I don't know if Tony, you probably have some source there as far as what players' bonuses situation are for team and individual performance, because a lot of those, well, they'll all get decided, the ones that haven't been yet, this weekend.
Unless you were a team that is in the mix for a playoff spot, it's all about individual selfishness and bonuses this weekend. Period.
Well, there are some contracts, I believe, where there are individual bonuses, and I think you just talked about some of them, Greg, where there are bonuses for individual achievements combined with bonuses for team achievements, like with Seattle for the wins.
Cortland
Well-
Sutton needs 1,065 yards this season, 82 yards to make $500,000. Tony Pollard, if he comes back, he's got rushing. So yeah, I mean, like I'm going to be looking at all these things and trying to cash in somewhere. So
And it was
be aware of
this,
that.
and it was
definitely money to be made with that. There's no
Yeah.
question.
and it was the right decision by Nick Sirianni to sit Saquon Barkley.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So
Without a doubt.
And at least
Yeah.
publicly, and I have to believe from the kind of guy he is, he said he's okay with it.
Well, the other thing is, if you start him and they need 104 yards, you got to start the whole offensive line.
Yeah.
And now if he has a
Now you're
bad
risking injury.
now if he has a bad first half and doesn't get, now you got to play that whole group for the whole game.
Yeah.
Which is
And he
ridiculous.
got him to 2,000. I mean, that was all like a
I think
25-yard
the
run. and
Barkley's quote was something along the lines of, "Is if it's not in God's plan, that so be it." Something like that, along those
Yeah.
lines. So he was accepting of it, and from all accounts, he's a really nice guy.
They've got bigger fish to fry there.
and don't forget about Cam Ward's
got
he didn't get any bonuses from it, but he was breaking records and then decided to sit the second half after he broke his record.
From what I understand, that was predetermined. I think that was the biggest, like, people. I guess there must have been a lot of money on Miami this weekend because I even had a client of mine, and she's like, "Where's Cam Ward?" I said, "I told you not to take Miami. Take the over. The over was the lock." I said, I've heard all week he wasn't going to play the whole game.
Well, I guess but not if he didn't break the record.
No, but how many points do you need? You get 31 at halftime.
I know. That's what I'm saying, though. If something were to happen where he didn't, he would have played the whole game.
Maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, based
So,
on what he
Take that
said.
into account, anybody that drafts him. But then again, every general manager is going to have their own feelings about every single player because he's going to be there's only going to be 2 quarterbacks drafted in the first round and in the top 10. One is Sanders and one is Ward. So
yeah, they'll both be top 5 picks. Look, I mean, the bottom line is that these are all grown-ups that know these situations. Yeah, you'll hear questions at the combine about it, and hopefully he gives an answer. I think Cristobal did him no favors by saying, "Oh, I'm going to plead ignorant." But bottom line, I think it was predetermined. That
some owners, some GMs, they'll write it off, and some will hold it against them. But he'll get picked. No question.
I
about
hate
it.
to say this, but we have to run.
Well, we were ending
All
it
right,
anyway,
guys.
Jimmy. So there.
Yes.
Be good. Happy
So
New
there.
Year. See y'all.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Take care,
Take care.
guys.
Two levels. Your project is to find me an emoji with somebody sticking their tongue out.
Oh, I'm not sure I want to look for that one, but anyway, nice way to end the show.
Bye-bye.